Well, listen, you, Isaac, you had something you want to discuss too about this recent beef, and you will have to update me. I know you tried to send me something on a 1 minute blurb on this latest beef with Kendrick Lamar and
Right.
is it Drake or J. Cole, or all three involved, I
It is
guess.
a three-way rapper beef.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
The
Three
two on
way.
the same side. It's not like, you know, the two are together, but it
It's
was
only getting
remarkable.
bigger.
Say
Really?
what?
Okay.
It is getting bigger.
It's
Yeah,
only getting
20 people in the industry. At least my son says he had to explain it to me.
hmm
But I'll start at the end first. It was remarkable because a rapper exited out of a beef, a public beef with another rapper, and he did so because, quote unquote, it disturbed his peace and he wanted it back. And I thought that was amazing. And so, starting from the beginning, it started just like most, alpha male beefs happen. One guy says, I'm the best. The other guy says, no, you're not. And then it gets really personal, and then another personal attack. And then J. Cole goes on stage. I think was sitting down, grabs the mic and live says to his audience, look, this is not me. It went to a place I didn't want it to go. I regret it. I have a lot of respect for Kendrick Lamar. And he even said, if y'all like Kendrick, clap your hands. And crowd cheered. It's known as the apology. Because he basically apologized for attacking this man. And the first thing is, I don't think that's ever happened before. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here on manhood, because what is at play was manhood, right?
Right.
You spoke against me, now I'm gonna speak against you.
Right.
So I'll pause there before I've got some other comments as well.
All right. So actually, who started the beef? Like, where did it start first?
I believe it was Kendrick, but it was years ago.
Okay.
And he came out and said he was the best. But recently, J. Cole reignited it by saying he's the best. I don't want to quote these guys. It's kind of sophomoric, what they're saying. Essentially, they're saying I'm the best,
but doesn't everybody do that? Don't all rappers say that they're the best? Like,
right.
Is this anything to even? Yeah.
I think part of it too happened was that so Kendrick did that Control verse where he was taking shots at everybody, and it was on a Big Sean song, and caused a lot of rave controversy at the time. And Drake said he didn't feel a way about it, but Drake has a way of, like, he was doing an interview with somebody and he was like, dude's talented. I wish him well, but he kind of like low key he's son him, but he kind of like, we'll see if the boys will, come see me after you've had a few hit records, a few hit albums, like, I've been doing this for a while. Like, I'm not really going to stoop. And I think Kendrick took that away. And then over the years, sometimes guys just see each other behind the scenes and it just becomes this thing. Like, so it's just like, it's kind of like Kanye and Drake, right? In a way, I think that they were both kind of envious of each other for different reasons, right? Envious of the talent. You could argue that Drake kind of stole a lot of his style from Kanye, a lot of the singing, rapping, and that Kanye turned around and took some stuff from Drake. And Ye has more of the fashion sense. Drake wishes he could dress like that. Drake's the pretty boy, and so, and Drake's been kind of the anointed top guy in rap for a long time. So a lot of that is I think personality driven. But again, Kendrick kind of came out of left field with the diss, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, and started up the controversy again. And so it kind of took off from there. And
I kind of wonder if it's just like entertainment, just to get people, stir some controversy. Like, do they really believe this stuff, or are they trying to get ratings? Like, what's the ulterior motive behind that? But it may be real, and we've always had pissing contests. I remember back in the day, what was it, LL and Kumo D, and
oh my god, yeah,
remember that? That was before Biggie and Tupac, right? So you just had these, whose dick is bigger, basically, and the fact that someone kind of manned up, I guess, to say, hey, I may not be the biggest dick in the room. I'm a urologist, so that's what, this phrase is terminology I use, but
It's okay when you say it.
And I'm okay with that.
Clinical when you say dick.
Plus is plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's remarkable. It is, because you don't see that in today. Is that we've evolved as men that we can, actually, admit to. The thing I like about that is that when he said, my spirit, my soul, what wasn't settled, and to me that tells me that this brother is self-aware and he's being true to himself. He doesn't care what people say about it, what people think about it. He is being true to himself, and to me that's integrity. And any man that is being true to himself and stands on integrity no matter what people say, dude, I can support that. I can get down with that.
But I mean, that's what I liked about it, and what I've been ruminating on is, and I looked it up. J. Cole is 39, and so is LeBron. LeBron and J. Cole are 39 years old. They are millennials, and the millennial generation is different. And from all the training I've received on generational differences, it's different, not worse. So there are things that are good about the generation behind us, and things that are bad. And what I like about the next generation is they're looking for something deeper. The complaint against LeBron has always been he's not a killer like Kobe and Jordan. And I just, although he's never said it, I just see that man as saying, I'm looking for something deeper than basketball. I'm not here for what Jordan was here for. Now that's not entertaining to me. So I'll always be a Jordan fan because of it. But I get it. I get it. And I hear J. Cole kind of saying the same thing. Like, I'm not here to prove I'm number one. I wish he had stood by I am number one. But stand on what you said. You said it. Stand on it. But he did back out and say, "Look, I'm not here for the battle. I'm not here."
But see, I'm a not push back. I'm a change the perspective slightly. There's they say it's an African proverb, says if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. And so, Braun's perspective of saying I want to go together because I can get further. Right now, whether or not that furthers in terms of overall the NBA players being able to kind of dictate where things happen and build his the first billionaire who's actively playing. This dude has gone further from a standpoint of J. Cole. And I know, but listening to you all in terms of what he brought to the table and what he said, I actually believe that he actually took control. Right. So he didn't allow himself to be manipulated to say, we're going to continue to feed into this vicious cycle of going back and forth. I'm put it on pause right now. I'm taking control. What can you say in coming back at him for that? Nothing.
Yeah. Because his boys were like, man, you gonna let him get away with that, man? You gonna let him talk about you like that?
That's what he said on stage. My inner circle is going to be mad about what I'm about to say. They were like, you got to hit back. And what historically has been the accusation is you apologize, you're lesser than a man.
Right.
If you back away, you're not a man. If you stand on something bigger than just one-upmanship, you're not a man. And that I like that he redefined what's important to him. He stated what's important to him, and then so redefined manhood.
How much that effort that takes to be able to go out in front of the public where you're expected. I mean, this is not like Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard with no mas and saying no mas and I'm going back to my corner. This is like, yeah, I can get you, but I'm gonna choose not to because that's not what I'm about.
Yeah,
that's deeper right there.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is the backlash, the response to J. Cole's apology, right? And I think that kind of speaks to the nature of how culture views manhood, how there's two different versions of it. Because there are people that are very much on this side with you, Columbus and Isaac. They talk about, he was the bigger man. This is very mature. This is evolved, all those things. And then you have people who are, oh man, you got to stand on what stand on business. You got to stand on what you said. You got to, this is weak. This is whack. And I think an evolved perspective, a mature perspective says in 20 years, nobody's even going to remember what the beef was about. right?
Yeah.
My kids aren't going to be saying, "Oh, Dad, you're soft because you apologize for some perceived slight or whatever." I mean, I think that is always going to be the challenge, is that a lot of manhood is a theater of being a man, that people make us posture, or we believe that we have to posture to earn our right to be able to do that.
I would offer this as a rebuttal to that is LL is bigger than Kumo D today, and he won that beef. He won it. And
Yeah.
I think what we're going to find out is, what does this generation truly feel? Because I know what our generation felt. It was, you man up and you win, and we rewarded LL for that. And so what I'd like to see is, what is this how is this generation going to respond to J. Cole saying it's bigger than there's something bigger than this beef?
So what I immediately I thought about Simone Biles, and like, what is that? But the fact that she's at the top of her game, and she decided that instead of, competing, she was true to herself and decided, hey, I'm not going to, my mental health, my peace is more important than this gold medal in competing. And what happened? She was applauded for that. I mean, she was heralded as, like this major voice for mental health, and no one criticized her really for doing that. I don't know what the streets are saying about J. Cole, but like, I don't think he's getting the same response. Maybe I don't know. And is there a double standard there?
But I don't know. I've got my son who won't talk about it. He like J. Cole fan, but if I could boil down his response, it's I think he's conflicted,
He wanted to fight.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what this generation thinks about that.
But when we go back in time and you look at, who won the Biggie and Tupac? They were equally talented,
Nobody.
right? Exactly. Who won the Shaq Kobe? They both were losers, I'm gonna say, because here's the thing: had they stayed together, we're talking about just ridiculous stuff right now. So when you get to the heart of it, in terms of even like go back to the LL, LL was more talented. I'm gonna argue in a sense, and had the branding and everything to kind of go to another level. But when you look at Tupac and Biggie, it's on par. Kobe and Shaq, it's a little bit on par. That's there. My bias and my skepticism is that all that beef is a way for all of us to be talking about it, right? That means that they're earning money, they're earning sales, they're getting downloads, they're getting all the other aspects that are there. He's still going to be inside of everyone's mouth right now. J. Cole is. True. I'm curious. That's a good point. I need to ask my son, because he's a huge J. Cole fan, and see what his thoughts are about it.
What's funny to me is that, it's a couple of things. One, we're talking about J. Cole. Obviously, Isaac, you brought that up. But the beef really was more so between Drake and Kendrick, right? And Drake fired back his shot yesterday, and then Rick Ross. So, there's all these other people that are kind of swirling around that orbit. And so the beef itself is actually getting bigger. J. Cole just bowed out of it. And there's speculation that one of the reasons why J. Cole did that was because of the way that it's kind of brewing, and it's adding more. There's more fuel to the fire and more flames that are being fanned. I wonder too, in our culture, we often use Biggie and Pac as a cautionary tale, right? That East Coast, West Coast beef that spilled over, and how much blood was shed through that whole thing. But on another scale, hip hop is a sport, and tension between men is as old as time, right? It goes all the way back to heaven and Lucifer and God, right? So from the very beginning, there's always been envy of the top position. And it's as American as Hamilton and Burr, right? And there's a lot of beef that happens behind the scene that a lot of people don't know. Now, you have titans in industry who hate each other, right? There's something about being at the top that brings out that enmity from other people. And your capacity to be able to know whether you want to deal with it or not sometimes says so much about you as the other person that you're in contention with. And also it's kind of impossible not to be at the top without having a rival for that same position.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that we talk about community and tribes, iron sharpens iron, you're defined by your villains, right? Batman had to have the Joker. If you don't have a worthy opponent, how do you prove your own greatness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe that, Isaac, could be part of the conflict that your son feels, right? It's like, I want my guy to be able to prove it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Steph had to have LeBron. Like, if LeBron didn't have Steph, all of his arguments happen in a vacuum.
I didn't think about it like that. Like, it's a sport, you know, and it's a competitive sport. And, you know, you don't play a sport just to win a certain number of games, you know, and you play it to win, right? You play it to win a championship, right? And so when, you know, I can see why they need these foils or, you know, this competition, you know, iron sharpens iron. You know, I guess the problem is when you can't distinguish between entertainment and personal. And I think what we saw with Biggie and Tupac was that, I mean, it got real personal. And it got to the point where, I mean, it was, you know, they both lost their lives. I thought we as a culture did not ever want to see something like that happen again. Like, and I thought everybody kind of fell back from that, honestly. Like, you know, this is not the way to go because we know where this is heading, you know. And so the fact that it's exploding is intriguing to me. That, you know, and I don't know if it's just all shock value, entertainment value. They're trying to get their numbers up, or is this real?
Well, you know, I mean, let me ask you a question. I want to kind of take this a slightly different pivot, and so I haven't thought this all the way through. So, but catch me on this. How many other genres pit this "I'm better than you" versus collaboration? Since there is so much money on the table for everybody. So, and within, I'm talking about inside of music. So, what I mean is, like, you know, inside of rap, we have the "No, I'm better than you. I'm the king. I'm winning." Is that the same thing in rock and roll? Is it the same thing inside of pop? Is it the same thing inside of country music? I mean, is the same thing even when it comes to like Beyonce and Rihanna aren't going at it? But I mean, is this, and where I'm going with this is that, is this a reflection of this generational input since the enslaved period of time, of pitting one versus the other, that keeps us like crabs in the barrel, pulling each other like I'm better?
That's interesting because I mean, I do remember the Michael Prince debate, and that was
but that wasn't between them. I mean, was it? I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. Prince, the king of pop, you know, just, yeah, I think there was definitely a rivalry there. It wasn't in your face and it wasn't overt, but it was more personal, I think. But no, I wonder if this is just because, do you see this outside of Black culture? Like,
you mean rivalries and beef?
This type of rock, yes. I mean, like, I'm not into country music or whatever. I know Beyonce's getting a lot of slack,
made this in the country music,
right? But like, yeah, like in rock and roll, do you see this type of beef between bands or head guys, head singers in bands?
You do.
So. Do you?
You do. It's just not public. It's a lot of it is behind the scenes. You know, sometimes like you'll have two bands on tour together. A lot of that stuff happens. You know, the band plays too long. They're supposed to be, you know, stepping off stage for the headliner, and the headliner takes it and feels a way about it. So it happens fairly often. I mean, because you're talking about creatives, right, you know, and they're very, very emotional. They're very sensitive to slights, and often the greatest ones come from a lot of trauma and tragedy and stuff like that. So there is a way that we do tend to glorify it in hip hop culture and Black culture.
The streets love it. You know, the streets love it. Like, yeah,
I like that you guys brought up Prince and Michael. That's what I was trying to get in to say. I think those guys proved it in the recording studio. You know, they didn't have these personal attacks, and there is rumor that Prince tried to run over Michael in a car, but but they made their statement in the recording studio, and you can examine the record by their records.
Yeah.
I think that is, I like that.
But they never
like
went after each other.
Correct.
never went
That's
after
the
Yes.
key.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with like you see someone else kind of doing their thing. You're like, man, I got to up my game, and I'm coming to
Yes.
bring my game. That's good stuff right there. I don't see a
Yeah.
problem with that.
Right.
That's different than like, nah, I'm gonna attack you because I'm better than you. Prove
Yeah.
you're better.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm never a fan at elevating yourself to the expense of someone else. If you have to put yourself I just never a fan of that, you know. And I do feel like that's a crab in a barrel kind of mentality. I think, you know, when you're rich, you know, Trump says I'm rich. Like rich people don't go around saying I'm rich. You know, like
Right.
you know, and you know, Jordan didn't go around saying I'm the GOAT. You know, like I mean, your play just spoke for itself, right? Right?
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Hey, you know what? Jordan also never said I'm the chosen one. Never said it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, Bron didn't have to. Everybody did, but he is indeed. You know, I mean, I'm just saying.
thing
Jordan
about
didn't go around. Jordan doesn't go around talking about himself in the third person either, congratulating himself, brother. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Say it.
Listen,
I like
listen.
that.
I think if Bron had Jordan's teams all those times and had a sidekick like called Pippen the whole entire time, he'd be good too.
Mm.
You know,
he had Kyrie. I mean, you know, so
Kyrie on broken wheels at times, but yeah, he did have Kyrie.
Oh man.
Or did Jordan make Kyrie or did Jordan make Pippen great?
Did he make him great?
Make him greater. Yeah.
What do you think
Jordan
Pippen would?
made
What do you think
every-
Pippen would say to that?
Jordan made every player on that team great. We know those names because they were on Jordan's team.
No, Magic is the only one who made someone else great. Let's correct the theme here.
Oh,
Magic is the one who made other people great, right?
He didn't
Jordan
make
didn't make
Kareem
you great.
He didn't make
Come
Kareem
on
great.
now. What?
Nope. Oh,
He did not
Worthy.
make Kareem great.
Oh, yes,
Or
he
Mike-
made. Oh,
or Michael Thompson.
don't be talking about Clay's
Or-
daddy. You talking about Clay's daddy?
Or Jamal Will. But when you look back at those Laker teams, they were stacked. Like the team, the people that the year after they won a championship, wasn't that when they got James Worthy was the first round draft pick that they got on the team? So it was like, yeah. But you said something though. Did Jordan make Pippen great? I think it's a thin line too, right? You were seeing the tension of being able to own your own space in the conversation. Like for a long time, Pippen was able to stand next to Jordan and say, you know, Jordan, Pippen, Shaq, and Kobe, like it was that 1-2 tandem.
Yeah.
And then he felt a way about it. Like somehow something got in his head, and now he's on this whole revenge tour, so to speak. And I think there's that tension
Somehow
there.
something got in his head.
Yeah, we know what that's about.
Jordan's son got in his head.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
go there, but yeah. So
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like still like we if you're good, if you're great, you don't have to go around saying it. Like people just recognize it. And that's the problem. To me, it reveals an insecurity that you have to say I'm great or I'm better than you. Like why? Like people that are secure in themselves, real talk, don't have to put down anybody at all because you feel like you're in your own lane. You don't have to compete. You are in your own lane. And the people will tell you that. The numbers will tell you that.
can I push back on that slightly?
Sure.
Only in this regard. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that you're great. I do agree that you don't have to say that you're better than someone, but at the same time, if you say that you're best, it's inherent in saying I'm the best because, and I came around to that way of thinking because Kanye would said it, and Kanye said something very interesting. He said, we easily accept it when people self-deprecate and say, oh, I'm not that good, or I'm not the best, or whatever. And it's false humility in order to allow other people to say it for you. And that's become a commonly accepted thing. But if you sit there and say, I'm the best, and I know I'm the best because I put in the work and did this, then I think that there's a healthy degree of confidence that should come from that. I think the other part of that we have is that a lot of people are declaring they're great without having the body of work to prove it or the effort. People are just feeling entitled to that title and that you're hating them by pushing back on it. And I think some of that is the millennial version of this, right? Like Kool Mo D and LL had their beef LL clearly won, but it wasn't like LL had to back away from that or not be able to stand on that. People didn't challenge him and say, right. So
I like how Columbus brought us back to LL won that by records. He put
Right.
out some amazing music. And I think that's the test of greatness. Put out I love if J. Cole were to step back and say, okay, I'm getting out of this argument, but I'm about to drop 3 fire albums and you decide who's the greatest. I said I was the
Right.
greatest.
Right.
I am the greatest. Here's my evidence.
Here's my take on the idea of, so I hear you as it relates to, we're quick to have that negative self-talk, and that's acceptable. And you're right. It's like, nah, you're the man. No, you're the man. You're the man. And you're putting it off so someone else can kind of give you accolades. But the reality of it is when you say I'm the greatest, who are you comparing yourself to? Yourself or to others? Am I comparing myself to the former version of myself, to my future version of myself? What I should constantly evolve, because life and society is you're only as good as the last thing you did, period. So Q, you're only as good as the last case you did. Right. If a new patient walks in, they're like, oh, he's the greatest, and you have a complication. Are you still the greatest? If I say I'm the greatest and I drop a bomb an album that just sucks, am I still the greatest? So that concept of me saying my goal is to be better than I was yesterday. That's my goal. That's my goal every single day, is to be better than I was yesterday. And I think the greats have that mindset. I'm fighting against myself. And to that point, that's why you can look and you say, when you compare a 39-year-old Bron to a 29-year-old Bron, his numbers stack up. His athleticism is different. You compare a 39-year-old MJ to a 29-year-old MJ, oh man, he's on the end of the bench. He's not getting off the bench. So what defines greatness in that context? Right? You have to kind of look and see, what is my barometer? What am I looking at?
Such a sniper.
Hard to bring back,
sniper.
Go ahead. I think it's very healthy to say I'm better than that guy. Because I mean, in basketball, obviously, if you're Michael Jordan, there's a very real possibility you're going to come up against that guy and have to prove it. Rap, it's very possible your album's going to drop at the same time. You got to say, I'm better than that guy, and that's fueling me.
But did Jordan say that? Did he tell that he? And so he didn't say that out loud.
That's what I don't understand is why do you have to say it out loud, and then why do you have to have personal attacks to prove it? But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying internally, I'm better than everyone out there, and I know it, and I'm going to prove it. I mean,
yeah,
that's a thought. That's a thought I've had multiple times. But you just don't.
We don't have social. Jordan didn't have social media back then, but I remember an interview. He was talking about the reason why he went to the Dream Team was because he wanted to test his mettle. He wanted to know. Jordan was such a psycho that he wanted to know how these other guys practiced, so he could determine if he was on that level, right? And he said that after he went there, he said, "Oh, I know I'm the best." Right. And Barkley, interestingly, said he went to the Dream Team thinking he was the best player in the world. And then after he left, he said, no, I know. He knew that Michael Jordan was the only player in the world that was better than him. But he knew it was definitive that Jordan was the best player. And that level of self-awareness can be healthy if you understand where the gap is, if there is one. It can challenge you, or it can turn into envy, and it can eat you up. And I think that in the case of, for instance, Prince and Michael, I think Prince was not so much jealous of Michael, but jealous of the level of stardom that he had when he knew he was more talented. So I can sing as well as this guy. I can sing better than this guy. I can play every.
Michael can play an instrument.
Right.
Yeah,
he could write. So you can. We all arguably look at Michael as one of the greatest artists ever, top one, top two, whatever, right? We know that Prince is more talented, but Michael Jackson was known all around the world at a time when it was very, very, very difficult for people in an island with no TV or Wi-Fi or internet to know who he was.
I wouldn't say Prince is more talented. I think we've always measured Prince and Michael on on the wrong planes. Prince was more talented musically. Michael was more talented
Right.
entertainment wise.
Mhm.
Michael was an entertainer, a pure entertainer.
Well, I
Prince was
mean,
a musician.
yeah.
But I think
I
Prince thought he was too, though. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
he was
I think-
no, but I think like to try to make this because to me I'm trying to find the the practical application of this for everyday men, and I know in my career I'm a surgeon, and I take pride in what I do, and I feel like I'm the best. I feel like you can't get a better surgery in this area other than me.
Mhm.
And your patients, they like to know that or feel that as well. So I mean, it does help to have that kind of confidence. Now, it's not to put anybody else down, but I think as men, it is healthy to hone your craft and to feel like, hey, I'm the best, or I'm competing with myself, and not necessarily. Let's separate that completely from this entertainment conversation, because I honestly think this is all for ratings and publicity. I bet you they're all laughing about this behind closed doors, at their fancy country club, whatever. But I just don't. I feel like I don't want this conversation to feel like this is representative of the everyday man, because it's not. That's not how I think we all roll. And I think there is a level of confidence that you have to walk with as a black man, a professional black man. It's not arrogant, but does exude confidence, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well stated. I mean, I think ultimately for me, for my in my personal journey, I feel as if I have the confidence to do anything that needs to be done. It may require me to put in more work behind the scenes, whatever it is, to kind of get myself up. If it's in front of an audience, if it's in terms of like administrative stuff, corporate stuff, whatever it is, or hands-on, tangibly, my confidence in my skills is high. But for me, that doesn't mean that I have to say I am the greatest ever for myself personally. For myself, it's that yes, I have what it takes to do what I need to. I respond to situations. I generally try to with more of a challenge mindset as opposed to a stress mindset of saying I don't have the resources it takes to withstand this demand, right? This competition that's there. It's like I have the resources. I can go to it. I can dig in deep. I'm gonna go and drop the bars to go ahead and go back and forth and to hold my own. And and I think that's different than me coming out saying I'm the greatest, because I may be different, right? So if we all get up on the stage, we're all going to be different. I don't need to say I'm better than any of you. I just need to be the best version of Columbus in that moment. And I'm grading myself personally based off of me, not based off of you. Now, some of it's going to come into play, because if the audience is like, "Oh, Q, A, I, P, A," then I might feel a little certain way. Like, okay, man, you got to go back in the lab, go back in the lab hard. And what would they do? Now, what they do? I might study your tape. What they do? How they do this? Whatever else, not to mimic you, but to kind of figure out, okay, what were you not doing that you can be better? And so for me, it's not the greatest, it's the greatest version of myself I'm trying to be every single day, personally.
I would agree with that, and I think I agree with that thinking, and I've had that thinking most of my life, because very few times in my career have I had to go head to head against someone. It's mostly been competition against myself. But I have to admit, those times when it's head to head, I go Michael Jordan on them, and I'm like, I am the best in this room, and I'm taking no losses. I I don't know what that is about me.
I
I'm
think
like,
that's universal, though.
there's one winner that comes out today, and it's me. Sorry.
Is that not a universal, like, characteristic of an alpha male?
I would say so, but I think also there's categories of it, and you guys are all at the top of your field. When you are an entrepreneur like myself, and you're trying to stake your claim, there's a slightly different perspective, because the competition is also survival, right? So you got to be able to prove that you belong, and It's the marketplace that determines that. All right. And then above that, you can say you're the greatest all you want, but at the end of the day, what's happening in your bank account, those sales and the branding is all that stuff is going to reveal that. And I think social media has kind of, it's given us the facade behind to say, if you have the numbers and you can fudge the numbers, I've got so many followers, therefore my business is successful. But there is another part of that game where you have to continue to develop yourself and be more successful. And that, I think, actually relates to 90% of the other men that are out there. One of the things I was going to say about what you were saying, Columbus, is that very often for men, the definition of your identity is about the skill set. So you're being able to say that I'm the greatest is about what you do, but identity is not about what you do. If you define yourself by what you do, then literally you're putting that in other people's hands to be able to say that your value is only as valuable as your ability to be at the top. Because there can only be one person, right? There can only ever be one number one at one time. Therefore, if I'm not number one, I'm nothing. And for a lot of quote unquote high value men, when you're working in that area, it's very difficult to be able to juggle that. And for a lot of men as well, they're driven by a certain void, a certain insecurity that tells them that if they're not number one. And so that it drives them to get all the success that they have. But also it eats away at them because there's this constant feeling that you don't deserve it. How do I keep proving that I, and so you have to buy a new house, you have to buy a new car, you have to conquer another woman, you have to get another accolade. So there's never a top, there's always another level, which from a personal development standpoint pushes you. But if it's always to fill a void, you can never have enough of something you never really needed. And so there's always only so many skills that you can prove. At some point, it's competitive. But to your point, if you're competing with yourself to prove to yourself that you are enough, then you'll never be enough. There's never enough trophies to fill that, And so I think that a lot of people wrestle with that because that's where a lot of the envy and hate comes from, especially when it comes to Black men and we're building community and things of that nature. There's a distrust of that guy who seems to have all the things that we feel like either we deserve or we wish we had, or is getting the accolades that we feel like we wish we were the recipients of. So to stand next to another man who's getting all the light and not feel like you're being in his shadow is something that is a serious challenge, because we are so often identified by the things that we do. If I was to sit on this panel right now, I'm talking to you guys. I'm not a surgeon. I'm not an attorney. What are my skill sets? So I'm confident in my abilities for what I do in advising business owners. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that is what I do is an extension of who I am, not a definition of it.
That's a good point.
I love it. It reminds me of the overused talents. We've got these talents that can be overused. I mean, the confidence can be overused. Assertiveness can be overused. Everything has to be put in check. If what's driving you is to be the best, it can get out of control. It can get out of control.
And it reminds me of the Kobe Bryant interview where, Kobe was like, they were like, hey, you're a great basketball player. He's like, no, I'm a great person. He's like, I'll be great at whatever I do. He said, I'm gonna be a great father. I'm gonna be a great artist. I'll be whatever it is. I'm gonna be great because I am great, period. And so, I mean, I definitely hear you. And so that's one of the things. It's just, the way I characterize it, I kind of take it actually from a Stephen Furtick and TD Jakes interview. And so, TD Jakes was kind of talking about, there are no, there's not a period. Basically, don't put a period behind your name. You put a comma. I'm not just a preacher. I'm a this, I'm a that, and the other. And so that's the mindset of growth I think we all have to take. It's like, okay, so what Q, you're a great surgeon. And what? All right, IP, you're a great attorney. And all right, Fred, you're a great entrepreneur. And and so I think we all have to be willing to embrace the and. What's next? What's after the comma?
and not define ourselves by what we do, but
Yeah.
who we are. And if you ask, the most successful people, what is it that they value the most? Many of them will say peace. When you have it all, money's not an issue, whatever, at the end of the day, you want peace. And I feel like that's why what J. Cole was said was so important, because at the end of the day, he's the one that has to live with himself and sleep at night. And when a man has peace, you see the most successful people killing themselves or, doing reckless things because they don't have peace. And so
Right.
what defines success? And I think for a lot of people, if you really think about it, it's not the fame, it's not, the likes, it's the peace at the end of the day. Can you go to sleep at night and be at peace with who you are as a person? So that's why that was so important to me.
And the best, I have learned to value my peace because I lived without peace for a long time. And now I know the lengths I will go to protect that peace. I know exactly where I'd go. There are people that I cut out of my life. There are jobs that I would not take. There are opportunities I would not take just to preserve it, because it's invaluable.
It is
Invaluable. There's no amount of money that can replace peace. There's no amount of sex that can replace peace.
Come on now. You sure about that? I'm just kidding.
No amount.
Let's try. No, I'm just
There's no amount of drugs, although I haven't tried drugs. I don't know that for sure, but I pretty much believe that's true.
No, it is true. And that's, that's why we often make decisions. I'm leaving my job because of, in part, peace, having peace of mind.
I like it.
Yeah. So it's valuable. Guard that, man.
And that's why I like how what I most respect about J. Cole is that he made it about peace.
Mm-hmm.
He made it about peace. He made a decision based on his own personal peace. I don't like about what. Oh, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I was gonna move on. What I don't like about what J. Cole did is who's the mafia that said never let them know how you feel, or never let them know what affects you. He put on display how this affected him, and from a gamesmanship, I wouldn't do that. I would just walk away. Look, you guys can have it, but there's something about it that said don't show them the inner workings.
But what you're saying there is don't be vulnerable. Like vulnerability is weakness.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's
powerful. I think it's very powerful. I think it shows us a certain amount of strength, inner strength, to say I can put myself out here and I don't care what y'all think. At the end of the day, I have to live with me. And so I think that shows tremendous strength and courage.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's weird to me for people in the culture to push back on it, saying, for you to stand there and say, it bothered my peace, and people like, really? I disagree. I disagree that you should be worried about your peace. What you should be worried about is how I feel about what you did. Right? To me, that's weird. That's weird behavior. So
it is weird. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, to your point about vulnerability, because that's exactly where I was going to go, is that if you are invincible, showing vulnerability can never hurt you, right? And so if your peace is the paramount thing that you value the most, and you're showing that I can be vulnerable enough to show you that I care more about my peace, so that when I'm at peace, what you say doesn't bother me. And what we do over and over again is we bargain for that. We say, I'll surrender what makes me whole internally for what makes you comfortable, so that I can feel validated in your eyes, instead of being able to sleep with yourself at night and not worry about what other people say. And how many people in not just our generation, but in many generations have made that bargain with the devil, right? Over and over again. What my boys say matters, what my girl thinks about me matters, right? Instead of being able to walk and talk and live in your own skin and say, no, this is what a man is to me, because I define what that is. I know who I am. And to be able to stand on that, to me, is real true power. That's what a king is. You know, when we talk about, calling each other kings, well, a king determines the rules of the game. You're playing my game. I'm not playing yours, because if you were playing your game, you'd be the king, right? So when I'm in your domain, I'm playing by your rules, but these are mine. And J. Cole said that's what it is. He bowed out of that battle. Now, whatever happens with the rest of those guys, the spray back, I think, eventually will just be people who rock with J. Cole are never not going to rock with him. They're going to love him more for what he did ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
They may feel a way because in the barbershop they're trying to defend their guy. When they're at home listening to his music or riding in a car, it's always going to resonate, because what he's spitting on wax when he writes those songs, talking about peace, talking about clarity, talking about developing as a man, talking about moving the culture forward, it's 100% authentic. Because he even said, I got outside of my frame and I came back to who I was, right? So he showed you what that looks like in real time. He took those blows, he took those arrows and said, I'll live with that. Whereas a lot of these other guys clearly are not able to do that, are not willing to do that. You know, we're not looking at Future as an evolved male, right?
Right.
Which is fine. That's his brand. Go ahead.
And that's such an incredible point that we haven't really touched on, is the fact of, look at what example he's setting for the next generation in terms of a level of staying on his business of like, this is how I feel. I don't need this to validate me as a man. I don't need to engage in this conflict like this. That, you know what? This is how I'm feeling. I'm comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with saying it, and I'm gonna move on. I think that's empowering for the future Black men who love him and everything else like that. So, I mean, I think it's only beneficial. It's not easy to do, but I think it also translates into other aspects. I mean, I'm gonna tell you. So, as an interventional cardiologist, I've had cases where people are like, oh man, you need to go in there, you need to do da da da. And I remember early in my career, I was like, okay, let me go and do it. I didn't feel right about doing it. And the patient come back with issues, whatever else, and I didn't believe in it because I'm following suit with what they're saying, right? And I'll never forget a case where one of my people above me, she was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, go ahead and do this. I was like, nah, I should send this patient to surgery or do whatever. I went in and did it. And the guy came back in, and what I did was perfectly fine. But then they turned cold on me. You're like, he should have sent the patient to surgery. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to be true to myself, how I feel in this moment. And it's not about me being like, okay, you know what? I can do this. You know, I can do it and just prove myself. It's like, what do you feel is the right thing to do in the right moment for you? In the case of the patient, for the patient. So in the terms of for J. Cole, he's doing what's right for him. That's huge to be able to go ahead and do that in public's eye. So it's nothing but applause for me.